Hey, hey, hey. Hope everybody's doing good. Carl Bryan coming at you with my boy Kenya Pat. What's going on, Kenya Pat?
The name is stuck.
Yeah,
Hey, what
exactly.
what happens if I move to Egypt? They're gonna call me Pyramid Pat.
Yeah. Nah, we're gonna Kenya Pat. I don't think we're not gonna get away from it. It's your LinkedIn profile, man. So there you
It
go.
is
Too
actually.
late.
Yeah.
Love it. Anyways, all right. Well, good to have everybody here. As per always, guys, the instructions are this is a Q&A call. You guys provide the Q, we provide the A. Often we get these things going. It takes a little bit, and then the questions start flowing towards the end. So the big idea of the day is to get the questions flowing early. But prior to doing that,
Hey,
you know who we're going to open up? Oh, sorry, Pat. What were you
Billy
going to say?
Dixon. I'm gonna say we're opening up Billy Dixon. He's
That's
the
where I was going. That's it. He's like the we
wow. Billy,
he must
oh
have
my God.
hot ears, right? Because we were literally talking about him 20 minutes ago and what a superstar he is. So with that intro, Mr. Billy Dixon, we're coming for you. There he is, Billy, the famous Billy Dixon. What's happening?
Hey, you guys targeting me?
Apparently,
We
because of Pat. Yeah, I was literally going to open you up, and then Pat said it, and I'm like, that's where I'm going, anyways, man. So, and for everybody listening, they're like, what the hell's going on? Who's this Billy Dixon guy? So, Billy has done. So, Pat's wife Holly she does the role playing, does an amazing job, and she sees everybody, going through, and of course, Pat and I get reports on, who's a standout and who needs a little bit more work, and yada yada yada. And Billy Dixon is by far the star of the show. So, Billy Dixon, you're the man, bud. You're the man.
Wow,
What's going on?
I appreciate that. I actually just got for anybody that's new and thinking about the role player on the fence, I just got Holly's notes back, and they're just phenomenal, just pure gold. Like she's very detail oriented. She timestamps her notes and gives some critiques. It's a play by play, which I really really appreciate. She gave some great tips, and she also referred me to some of the PAS resources. Like, hey, if you get a chance, check this out. So that was really helpful. I think it's helped me get more comfortable with the software and navigating through the PAS, but also it helped me to structure how I'm going to present the PAS, like which strategy, think about which strategies I'm going to go over, structure what I'm going to say, and structure the close. So Holly's feedback has been fantastic. And also, uh, the if as a new coach, if you haven't checked out I think it's in the PAS resource section, the 100K training, the 12 jumpstart script. It's a Word document. That is a fantastic document. It tells you exactly what to say, what to go through with the questions, and also in some of the PSs that I've done, people are like, I'm not really sure what percentage increase that would have for market dominating position. It gives some suggestions on not getting stuck on that. Like I think for the market dominating position, it says something like, hey, we've seen businesses get up to 40 and 50% increase. What type of increase do you think it would have for your business? So I thought that was fantastic, and it kind of helped me get off of that, because a lot of people have been saying, oh, I don't know what percentage increase I'm going to get. It's hard for me to estimate, hard for me to guess.
So, and
So
what do you say, Billy? So, what do you say? What's your
well,
counter to that?
what I'll do is I'll share with them. Well, look, this is what it did for this child psychologist here, or this is what
Mhm.
it did for this florist, and then I'll throw it back at them and say, what do you think it could do for your business, percentage
Yeah.
wise? And if they're still a little stuck, I ask them if it's a numbers thing, and I'll say, look, if you have a business making $100,000 and we were to make a 5% increase, then that would be an increase of $5,000 for the year.
Yep.
So just to give you some frame there, and then I'll ask them, so what percentage do you think it would increase your revenue?
Yeah, I love it.
So that kind of helps guide them through. So my question, because I know this is the Q&A.
Okay, actually, Billy, before you
Um,
go to the question, I just want to
sure.
reinforce, I just want to make sure for everybody listening and for you possibly, but what I have found, because it's exactly just, most people just don't think in percentages, right? And I've been said this many times, but I believe it to be a wealth hack to train yourself to start thinking in percentages. So an example that I would give is that, a landing page, or you've got a 2% X. So let's call it a conversion on a landing page. And then you go to 3%. The average, like person will take that and go 2 to 3. That's a 1% improvement. Not very excited. Well, from 2 to 3 is actually a 50% improvement, not 1. That is a wealth hack on steroids. So again, I think people should be thinking. So anyway, so that explaining that the average business owner is not going to think along those lines. So if they don't, and there's a chance that they don't, do what you just did a minute ago, Billy, where you set up a framework that 5% will equal 5,000. So if you prefer to go 5, 10, 15,000, feel free, or we can again do the percentages. So, and if you look at the software, that's why, Billy, besides 5%, it breaks it down and it gives you the whole number for that exact reason. So little FYI. So I love that distinction, and I wanted to make sure everybody took that away, because there's huge power in giving them 5% instead of 5%, or 5,000 instead of 5%, because it'll help them along with the process. So
right. And
there we go. Okay.
I think that is another great tip. If you just throw a percentage number in there and say, hey, let's put 3% in here, just see what it looks like, and then the software gives you the actual number. And I would just ask them, hey, do you feel comfortable that if we implemented this strategy that you could get this increase? And then they're looking at the number, so they can actually say, oh, wow, yeah, absolutely. One of the presentations I did, I said, look, you think we could get a 10% increase here? And she's like, oh, minimum.
Yeah.
But prior to that, when I asked her what percentage increase, she's like, I don't know. I can't really say. I said, well, do you think we could get a 10% increase? And she's like, oh yeah, minimum. So
actually, Billy, so we don't stay on this, but I want to make sure okay. So here's another way that I frame it up. First of all, the example that I gave earlier, I'd encourage everybody to be stealing that. Like again, wealth, like thinking in percentages is a wealth hack. So when you go from 2 to 3%, the average mind sees a 1% improvement, which isn't very exciting. But 2 to 3 is a 50% improvement. By saying that to the average business owner, you have just got their attention in a very real and tangible way. To like, oh wow, okay, this person's on a slightly different level business-wise, because I would have never seen that in a million years. So doing that. Now also, let's say, okay, so Billy, you're a chiropractor. Okay, and we're going through the process that Billy and I have been going through for the last 5 minutes here. Okay, so chiropractor. So Billy, what is your average client worth? And then you're like, well, I'm not exactly sure. I'd help you work it out. And let's say that we establish that your average client, Billy, is worth $5,000. Would that be about right? I get you to agree with me. So now when we put 5 or 10,000, I can also dummy it down further, where I go, well, just as an example, do you think over the next 12 months with this market dominating position, with this this downsell, this upsell, et cetera, do you think we'll be able to get 2 extra clients? Do you think we'll be able to get, because 2 clients is 5,000 each, is an extra $10,000. So you're dummying down those numbers even more by bringing it back to per client. That'll help accelerate.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So Billy, on your next one, when you're meeting with Holly and I think you're doing the chiropractor for the third one, you can pull that out and see what she says, because I think that'll really, like, how Holly keeps saying, like, people keep saying, I think you're too easy. And she's like, how can I be easy? Like, there's no comeback to what you're giving me because it's so compelling. Like, how can I say no to that? And I think, as you learn that process, you learn something that's almost foolproof. Now, in, let's say, the real world, which we're all in the real world, but part of the real world is you run into people who aren't very nice and are very skeptical and all that. I'm sorry, it's not Holly. She can't play a mean person because she doesn't have a mean bone in her body. So, but she does her best to be resistant and play dumb and all those things. Like, I just don't understand it. Can you explain it and all that? But it really forces you. One thing I'm hearing, and we're going to address this in some training that we're going to create. One thing I'm hearing for people, if they're listening, is she'll ask people, so how does this work? Like, do I have to do all the work or do you do the work? And I hear a lot of humming and hawing, and it's like, well, we're going to work together on this. And what we want you to be able to start doing is saying with certainty, I have 3 package offers. And you give them names or something. This is the first offer. This is where you could go. This is the second offer. This is the third. Here are the benefits to them. Here's how it's going to impact your business. And you're going to say this with certainty. We've already got those resources, I believe, in the Coaches Marketing Center, but we're going to put some training around them and bring them to light. And then through Holly or Wally's training on the role play, they're going to give those to you ahead of time before the second or third call. So you have time to practice with them. We're going to make PowerPoint slides around them so you'll be able to pull them up and just say, let me share a slide with you. And of course, you can design them all yourself and all that, but we're going to give you some ideas for that. I think about 10% of the people I've heard just listening in the background are really good with what this package idea already, and probably 90% are struggling, and they really could polish that. That's the close. It's part of the close, and they're not getting it. So we're going to help you with that. We're going to create some training around that and get that posted as soon as we can. But we're looking still, what, a couple weeks out, Carl, I think.
Awesome.
Maybe
yeah,
soon.
That's going to be super handy. Cool bananas. There you go. So Billy,
yeah, I think
you
that's
had a
awesome.
question,
And
Billy.
very
I
needed.
think we're. Oh, yeah, that's coming, buddy. Did you have a question for us, Billy, around the software?
I think I forgot my question. Oh, it was what is one of the more common objections you guys think people are getting at the close?
Oh, it's always it's time, money, people. It's going to be one of those 3. I don't have the bandwidth behind me, to help implement all this stuff. I don't have the time, and then I don't have the money. So you've got to so what you do, knowing that that's coming with your verbiage, and as you're talking them through the process, you're it's an NLP hack, right? But you're constantly throwing at them that it's going to be really easy. I'm going to be here. There's no need for people. I know that you probably already feel overwhelmed, but this is going to create a bunch more time for you. But time, money, people is I think the answer. Pat, may I ask you what you'd say?
Well, I agree with that totally. I think there's several objections, and I don't have it in front of me. One thing we've started creating in the past, and we've shelved it because we have higher priority things to create, but it's an objection handler in the software, and it might be just a separate resource. But I remember hearing one of the people that mentored me years ago that they had said they tried to pitch someone really high level, and the guy turned them down. And so they came back, like it was too expensive or whatever the thing was. They came back and came back with another thing, and the guy turned them down. And they came back again, and there was like 10 ways that they came back. And so what we're going to do is create something like the 10 most common objections you hear, and then 10 ways to overcome every objection. So if they're stuck on price, you're not going to say, well, instead of saying, let's say you say it's $19.97 a month, they go, it's too expensive. Instead of jumping right away to, well, I've got a program for $4.97, it's like, well, then you have this response to it. And if they come back and say it's still too expensive, you have another response and another one and another one. Like, you just don't let up. And like, I couldn't do that because I haven't practiced that. But if I had that in front of me, like even taped to the side of my computer, man, that would be amazing to have. So something we want to do. It's a project in the works. We'll get it as soon as we can. I mean, obviously. So this year, let's call it this year.
We have lots going on, but Billy, does that help you, buddy?
Yes, sir, it does. I'm gonna practice a couple of objections there before my next role play.
There you go. Fantastic, bud. Okay, we're gonna put you back on mute, and actually, I'm gonna go to Tom Kavanaugh because I mentioned NLP 2 seconds ago, and he is the master. Tom Kavanaugh. Hey.
Hey, Carl, how are you? Hi, Pat.
Doing there. Fantastic. Actually, I remember, I just noticed in your remark in the chat, but Tom did a presentation for us in the first business coaching, the virtual business coaching mastery event. And he went over exactly this. So something tells me you might give us a little bit of magic in answer to Billy's question. Would I be right? What are the objections out there?
So when we talk about objections to anything that we're dealing with, whether it's a sales presentation or whether it's asking somebody out on a date, there's only 4 real true objections to anything. The first one is, obviously, as you mentioned, I don't have enough time. The second one is, I don't have enough money. Now, those are both argumentative because you could certainly sit down and show somebody where they can find the time, because everybody has 24 hours in a day. We can find the time for you. As far as the money's concerned, I think Carl and Pat and Holly and everybody's done a phenomenal job of showing people how you can get your coaching fees in the first 45 minutes, and the rest of it's gravy for the business owner. The third part is, it works for everybody else, but it couldn't possibly work for me. And that's just simply an identity challenge. That's where somebody doesn't have enough confidence in their own ability to make something work. And that's where we hold their hand and walk them through. That's the whole purpose of having the coaching. And the final one is, I don't either like you or I don't trust you. If we've taken the time to build rapport up front with that potential client, then that really becomes a non-issue at the end, because they really we want them to feel like we're their new best friend. That's really essentially what it works out to be. Does that help?
It does it ever. So give us the 4, just in layman's terms, punch out the 4 so everybody can hear them. The only 4 objections.
Sure. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money.
Yep.
It works for everybody else, but it couldn't possibly work for me.
Yep.
Either I don't like you or I don't trust you.
Perfect. Boom. Everybody write that down. Okay. That's liquid gold is what that is. Yeah, I love it. What was I going to follow up with there? But yeah, I think that's it. So do you have sort of follow on from that? Is there any secret sauce that they can follow in terms of, connecting it? Like, the problem is it works for everyone else, it won't work for me, as an example, or I don't have the money. What's your next? Do you have a templated next step, Tom?
Well, actually, I think the next step is really the first step, Carl. I think the first step is to make sure that you weave the overcoming of each of these objections into your presentation.
Yeah.
It comes up.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, again, Tom is like in this area, guys, Tom is world, like, he's world class at this. So that's what I said. So what he's saying is, as you're going through the finding of the $10,000, knowing that those are the only 4, objections that you're going to have, you have to overcome them as you're going through, just by throwing out, I know you already feel overwhelmed, but don't you worry, it's going to be easier than anything else you've ever done. Gosh, if it works for others and it doesn't work for me, I failed grade 8 math, right? I'm telling you, like, if I can work it out. I was once there. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to turn to. I got introduced to these, to this software and these 12 areas. It turned everything around step by step, matter of fact. If you can send an email, if you can add 2 + 2, you're going to be able to pull this off. And that's the roadmap that I followed. So that's the way that you just, did I do a great job or a bad job of explaining that? But no doubt you can see how you drop that language into your consultation as you're finding them the $100,000. So you're kind of taking away the objection before they put it forth. So
I think that's awesome. I think that's perfectly awesome. And If I could just add one more thing, Pat, last
Please.
week you brought up one of the embedded commands we use in NLP, which was unlike my competition, which is a great subliminal command for them not to like your competition. And the key is there's another one that you can put in there, and you can spread it out, but you want to do it 2 or 3 times, and that is, I am sure that you, like me, want to excel at what you're doing.
Yeah, say that again. Yeah, I agree, Pat.
Awesome.
Tom, say that again, please.
Okay, so I'm sure that you, Carl, like me, want to be the best at what you're doing. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Home run.
Okay, so I did a tag on at
That's
the
good.
very end. I did a tag on which made you agree that you like me.
Yes. Yeah,
Sure,
guys, again, I don't know
agree.
how much exposure that you guys have in sales and whatnot. I'm not talking to Tom here. I'm talking to, everybody. Just little phraseology, little phrases like that can really just change things in a very real and tangible way. Just like being hypnotized. You think about that. You're like, how in the hell did they get that guy, my wife, me, Dave, who was sitting beside me drinking beer a minute ago, and now he's on stage dancing like Pee Wee Herman? You've ever seen that? We've all seen it. You're like, how does that happen? What Tom just did with that phraseology, that's kind of what happens. We're like, well, you've done it, right? Like, how did I just end up buying that car? How did I end up buying that couch, right? It's like something magical happens, and a bit of that magic is the words that are used and the connections that you make. And bingo, bango, bongo. Remember, people don't buy on logic, right? They justify the purchase with logic, but they buy on emotion all day long. So lots of connections going on there. So I love it, Tom. I love it. Any more magic, bud?
I think the whole idea behind these building rapport, you can build 3 times the rapport in 1/3 the amount of time simply by listening to the words that your potential client uses to describe their world. What I mean is they're going to use either visual predicates, auditory predicates, or kinesthetic predicates, which are like physical touching and doing. So for instance, let me just give you a quick example, if I may.
Please.
If someone says to you, I've heard about this program, I've heard something like this exists, I want to know if you could tell me all about it, because I need to understand it at a different level. So those are all auditory predicates, heard and listened and so forth. So if you said to them, here, I want to show you what this is, I'm sure you're going to see an awful lot in there. You're speaking in visual predicates, you're going to lose rapport with that client because you're speaking in a different way. Exactly. You're speaking in a different way than they process. But if you said to them, I have a great explanation available for you today. I'm going to share the details with you, and I want you to listen closely because you're going to hear the sound of gold in your ears.
Okay.
Oh, does that make sense?
There we go.
So the predicates they use to describe their world are what you want to use back when you're presenting. I would recommend, if you're going to do a presentation, I would have 3 different presentations, same presentation, but one with visual predicates, one with auditory predicates, and one with kinesthetic predicates in there. So you know exactly which one to switch to when you're doing that presentation. It's a little bit extra work, but I promise you it'll yield huge dividends for you.
Yeah, move along. And sorry, I think you just went. So they will be able to know which one to. As an example, and guys, again, you got to think about this over. You're not going to be able to do this in a week, right? This takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, but you'll be rewarded ridiculously well if you were to pull that off. So what you're saying is there would be a series of questions that you would ask me at the beginning. And then through my answers, whether again, you felt they were more visual or whatnot, you would then tailor your presentation to my style, correct?
Absolutely, 100%. And one of the things that you do is when you ask a question about someone being able to do a presentation, if they say, "Oh, I could never do a presentation like that," that's like it would work for somebody else, but it wouldn't work for me.
Yeah.
And then you could simply say, I showed this presentation to someone. She was very much like you and like me. And what I watched her do was transform herself into a very confident business presenter, because she took the time and overcame her fears, and she showed everybody what a true entrepreneur she really is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now she's breaking records and taking names,
Right. You can
etc.
keep going on and on. The idea is that you want to feed their information back to them in a way that shows them successful through somebody else.
Yeah, I love it.
Does that help?
There you go, guys. It helps a ton. Helps a ton.
Thanks for having me on.
I love it. You bet, Tom. We always appreciate you, bud.
Thank you.
So let me add to that a little bit. And Tom,
please do.
maybe stay on there. Yeah, just Tom,
Okay.
stay on, because I don't know if I've done this wrong over the years. I've done this on my kids when they were growing up, and I used to do this presentation called "How to Know if Someone's Lying to You," like if your employee, customer, whatever. And I learned this a long time ago when I went to police college a long time ago to be a policeman in my earlier life, and we learned how to tell border guards tell if you're lying to them at the border. But it's the same thing. It's probably an NLP thing. I wanted to ask Tom about this. But you can tell if someone's visual or auditory or kinesthetic learner just by asking them a question and watching their eyes. So a question could be that maybe, Tom, you got a better question than when you're first asking a client, but it's like, what would your future look like in a year if all things went great for you? And you watch their eyes, and if they stare straight ahead or they look up, they're accessing pictures in their brain, and they are a visual learner. So it's like when the teacher says, "Johnny, what's 4 + 3?" and he starts looking up at the ceiling, and the teacher says, "Johnny, the answer's not on the ceiling, but for Johnny it is on the ceiling, because he's a visual learner and he has to look up to access the answer." So auditory learners look left or right, like they're looking towards one of their ears. They're trying to recall audio. And kinesthetic learners look down, like the thinker in that, whatever that famous statue is. So we would do this with our kids when they're younger. I'd just say, "Hey, Sam, how many bedrooms in that last house we had?" And he had no idea. So he'd look up in the sky and he'd start counting them in his mind. And I knew right away he's a visual learner. So I want to connect with Sam. I start using visual language. Do you see what I'm saying, Sam? Like, it's a visual word, right? Yeah. And then I'd say, "Hey, Sam, we're missing some cookies from the cookie jar. Where were you at 3 o'clock this afternoon?" And he starts looking in the sky. I know he's visual. I know he's trying to access the truth, and he tells me, and I know he's telling the truth because he's accessing where the truth is. But if he's looking down to the left, to the right, all over the place, I know he can't go to the truth because that's up. So he starts looking down. That's where the lies are. And you can do that with your employees. You can do that with any customers, whatever, suppliers. Like, how come you didn't get here? And you have to figure out ahead of time if they're visual, auditory, kinesthetic. You can figure that out pretty easily. But
wow,
you ask a question, and if they're going to the truth or to a falsehood. They're hunting to make up a story, and it's really powerful. So anyway, Tom, I don't know if I'm on the right track with that. Have you had an experience with that?
You're on the right track, but you took a fork, and please allow me to share with you what I mean by that. So if you were to look at somebody's face, if they look up, as you said when you asked them a question, their original response, looking up, is their lead representational system. That's the one that they go to for big picture questions. So, and no pun intended there, but just the fact that it's the big picture. Now, when you look at somebody, if they look up to their left, which would be on your right side, that means they're accessing what's known as eidetic memory. That is a visual from the past of something that they've seen. If they look up at the right, that means that they are manufacturing the vision. So if you ask somebody where they were and they want to tell you someplace they weren't, they're going to look up to their right and describe where they were. Not looking down at the bottom, but up at top to their right, which would be your left. Okay. Now, in the middle, you're 100% correct that that's where they're accessing auditory information. So for instance, if they look to their left, which is on your right, they're accessing a remembered auditory file that they have in their memory, such as something that someone said to them, the sound of their mother's voice, something like that.
Yeah.
If they are going to manufacture what somebody said to repeat it to you, they're going to look to their right, which is on your left.
Interesting.
Okay, now,
Wow.
looking down at the bottom, if they access their right at the bottom, that means they're accessing their feelings. How do you feel about the fact that you've just broken all the new records? They're going to look down there just quickly to access it, and then they're going to describe something either going to be in the middle or up above, because they either see themselves celebrating or they hear themselves celebrating. So down to their right, which is your left, means they're accessing emotions. That's the true emotions. If they look down to their left, which is your right, then that is called auditory digital. That would be if you asked somebody to recite the Pledge of Allegiance, that's where they would look in order to access that file in their memory banks.
So does this work for left brain people and right brain people the same way?
It does work for left brain people and right brain people as long as they are normally organized right or left. And what I mean by that is the best way for you to tell if you have someone who's what we call a mismatcher or polarity responder, where if you say black, they have to say white. So you've met people like that. Okay.
Yeah.
The best and quickest way to identify them is if they wear their watch on their dominant hand.
Okay.
Okay.
Interesting.
That would be a normally organized right-hand person would be wearing their watch on their left hand and not on their right. If they wear their watch on their right hand and they're right-handed, that would be a mismatcher. In other words, they're a contrarian thinker all day long.
Hmm.
Okay, so if you take a look at some of our past presidents and you see some of the challenges they had getting bills passed through Congress, you'll look at their watch and you'll see why, because they were complete contrarian thinkers. It's my way or the highway.
Hmm.
And so when you take a look at famous people, there's a lot of them who were successful because they thought the opposite of everybody else.
Okay, one more question. Does this work across cultures?
It does work across cultures unless you have a culture like, for instance, in Malaysia and some of those countries over there, they have a don't look to speak rule. It's part of their culture. You don't ever look at anybody in the face with your eyes when you speak to them. So those types of cultures, it wouldn't work.
Okay. Good. Well, I'm just thinking that, I mean, I'm glad this is being recorded. This is some pretty high level sales training that you don't normally get on the YouTube video.
Exactly.
I know.
Some guy on
awesome.
Facebook.
I hope it helped.
Yeah. This is awesome. Thank you so much.
So hang on, but Todd, I just want to make sure, because I wanted to dummy this, because that's just again, he's got a master class, folks, in NLP, so not bad for Thursday. But so what Pat said is that if I ask Pat, so I say to him, how many rooms did your last house have? So something he could definitely work out, but he would have to sit there and think. Is he, I think what you said, Pat, but correct me if I'm wrong, but if he looks up, he's visual. If he looks to the left or right, he's auditory. And if he looks down, he's kinesthetic. Am I correct? Is that correct?
Well, if he looks up to his left, he's counting the number of rooms in the house. He's picturing the number of rooms. If he looks to the middle, he's repeating to himself the numbers of rooms. He's not looking at pictures. He's just going bedroom, 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 kitchen, that kind of thing. If he's looking down, he's accessing how he feels, or he's reciting something from maybe an advertisement on the home that he once read. So that's really important to understand, that makes a big difference on where they look up, whether it's right or left. There's one more level that I want to share with you, and this will confuse some people when they're looking at somebody and their eyes go left to right and right to left. That's called a transderivational search. And that's when they're mixing some of the things that they think you want to hear or things that you want to see in the answer with the actual facts. Criminals are famous for transderivational searches. Pat, if you went to the police academy, you'll know that criminals lie and tell truth at the same time. That's how they mix it to make it a plausible story for an alibi. So that's a transderivational search. They look at both constructed or fabricated information and blend it with factual information.
Wow.
So
there you go.
But I mean, I love this topic because it's absolutely something you can study and you can master and you can get really good at, you can practice. And I mean, even if I've got it wrong, I think over the years, I've still seen, like with my kids, if I'm talking to someone else, if I'm just talking and I'd say, ask a question, I see their eyes go up to look for an answer. I know I'm dealing with a visual person generally, and I start using visual language. Do you see what I'm saying? Right? Instead of, do you hear what I'm saying, or how do you feel about that, or something. So you can absolutely go there with that and really connect with them at a faster level. So.
Absolutely, I agree with 100%. And if I could make a recommendation for you, I think the greatest skill set that we could have as business coaches is the ability to reframe someone's mindset about a particular subject or a particular question. There's a book titled Reframing by Richard Bandler and John Grinder, which I think is the best basic introduction to the concept. And if you want to take the master's level of reframing, then the book called Sleight of Mouth by Robert Dilts is the absolute Bible. There are 15 elegant reframes that you would never lose an argument or be able to not overcome an objection.
Really? What 2 books? What are the names of them?
Reframing by Richard Bandler and John Grinder. The second one is Sleight of Mouth by Robert Dilts.
Ooh, Flight of Mouth. Is that right?
Yes, just like a magician,
Sleight of hand, but
with language.
Yeah.
Love it.
Ooh, I'm gonna get
there
those.
You go. Yeah, I know. That's crazy. And Tom, so anybody, like, it was a Tony Robbins fan, like, would you agree that the foundation, and certainly of the early days, of Tony Robbins' coaching was pretty much NLP? Is that correct?
It's all of that, yes.
Yeah.
And Jim,
there you go.
He and Bandler, Grinder, and Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn was a phenomenal teacher and mentor to Tony Robbins. He did and Tony worked for Jim Rohn before he studied NLP.
Yeah, love it. So look, we're doing well here with you. So give us like the biggest NLP hack. So okay, let's go to. So we've been kind of on sales up to this point. Let's go. I got a coaching client and he's pig-headed, or he just won't bloody do X, Y, Z. Give us your best, what are we going to call it, reframing hack that you could give everybody.
Okay, well, it would depend upon the context of the situation, of course. However, if he's pig-headed, that could indicate that he's a mismatcher or a polarity responder. What I would do is I would reverse the language. So in other words, what you're telling me is you really don't want to be successful. Is that right?
Oh, my God. There we go. Oh, God, that was good. That was good. Shoot. Tom, you've done this before.
Just a couple of times.
I love it. All right, cool. Pat, any questions for Tom here before I close him down? That was an impressive answer to my putting him on the spot.
Well, I am sure, Carl, that you, like me, would think it's a good idea if I had to.
Pat's listening. I love it. Oh, my God. Tom, you are a champion. Such an honor to have you on board with us, bud.
Gentlemen, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate you letting me in.
You bet.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, let's put Tom. There you go. But we didn't know we were going to have an NLP masterclass going on today. Hey, Pat? There we go.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing, actually.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. Isn't it?
There's so many basic things that we learn and we rehash them week after week after week, and they're so important to grow a coaching practice. And sometimes it's nice to step out a little bit and go, oh my gosh, like we are dealing in an infinite world of possibilities of how to sell something better. And we've just kind of dipped our toe into that. And I can tell you, if Tom's had, I don't know how many books, dozens and dozens of books on NLP, and he's given us enough to cover about half a chapter there. I know this subject goes so much deeper, and you can just hear it. It's like, oh my gosh, I think I want to get a new career and learn this.
Yeah. Well,
it's because
Pat, because the biggest challenge for all the coaches listening, right? They have a client, and this damn client won't do anything, right? You're like, if you wrote down your goals and you did 80-20 and you followed X and you went to your database and worked out the 20% of the clients who spend 80% of the money, and then you concentrated on those 20, that your client would make gobs of money, like just end of story, the end, drop the mic, step away, right? But I can't get my freaking client to move. I can't get him out of the way. What we just talked about. So the example that I would give you, if you're thinking, geez, is that really the secret? Just think of Pat walks into a bar. There's a hypnotist there. He gets him out of his chair, sits on a chair. And next thing you know, you were sitting beside Pat a minute ago, and then he's up there dancing like Pee Wee Herman, right? Or hugging the woman beside her, whatever it might be. Like, that's hypnosis, which is really the foundation of NLP. So like, if you can get somebody up there to dance like Pee Wee Herman, you can get your coaching client to analyze their database and start concentrating on the 20% that spend 80% of the money. But you need to do what Pat did after Tom did it, in that he goes mismatch, and then he does this really unbelievable. So what you're really, you know what I mean? Like, I can't remember what he said, but what you're really saying is that you don't want to be successful, right? It's like, what? I didn't say that. You just moved your coaching client. So the power is immense, folks.
Just a quick question back for Tom. He mentioned the book Sleight of Mouth. Is that by Robert Dilts or by Doug O'Brien?
Open them up, Tom.
It's by Robert Dilts.
Okay, thanks.
Dilts.
Yep.
Awesome. Cool. Awesome, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. Okay, let's go up. Let's move along here. Ben's saying something, and I'm not sure exactly what he's saying. So, Ben, we are coming for you. Iskabov. Ben Iskabov. Russian?
Isakov. Come on, Carl.
Oh, Isakov.
Should I call you Brian?
Ben Isakov. What's going on, Ben Isakov? How goes it, brother?
I was late for this session, and I'm tuning in, and I'm hearing like cheater, and I'm like, oh hell, what did I miss here now? But then I was like blown away by the conversation. It is an awesome topic, actually.
Okay, I wasn't sure what you meant. I was like, we got to open them up. Anyways, how's it going, Ben? Tell us what's happening, man. What's happening?
Tons things are happening, like reaching out, cold calling like crazy, working on JV partnership. Actually, like, I'm part of BNI. And you know what? They have a nice search engine for business owners with information and emails and even phone numbers. So I'm utilizing this resource right now and getting bookkeepers on board. Actually, in matter of fact, I've got 2 that I'm going to do some business focus groups in next few weeks, and 3 more are coming.
Awesome. Here we go. And that's interesting. You mentioned joint ventures, because same thing. There's coaches listening, and I've absolutely experienced it. I bet Pat has. But it's like what I said about the coaching client. I just can't get them to do anything. It's the same thing. Getting the accountant or the guy who heads up BNI or the networking group or the coupon book or the magazine or the newspaper, the digital marketer, the online directory. The list goes on. Getting them to actually take you for a test drive and hand you those 3 clients, you can really shift them and they can see the results. Same thing. Using some of these techniques would be magic. So that's good, Ben. I'm glad so what's the prognosis here? You've got how many joint ventures in the works, and when do you feel like you're going to be knocking it out of the park with these, all this work you're doing?
Well, I don't know. I'm going to set up the first 2 actually, week of April 12th, because we need to give the LPW team to work on it, right? And I'm planning to have two a week after that. So we'll see. The material is good. Like, I'm not as good as you or any of the masters of LPW at this point with the presentation, but I'm going with an old and proven 10K, even not 100K, like 10K, like I'm just nailing it down, and people are just, you start to speak and you start to show them the numbers, it speaks for itself, right?
Yep.
So yeah, no,
Absolutely.
How does it work? If not, you will hear from me for sure.
Don't have faith. It just, again, you follow the process. You sit down with folks. You really shift them. You show them the money. They show you the gap. You show them the gaps and what they're currently doing and what they could be doing. And you want some help with that. And you watch, Ben. They'll sign up, bud, without question.
Oh, yeah. It will come for sure. Yeah. But anyways,
cool.
Thanks.
And by the way, did I get it right? Is that Iskakov? Is that Russian?
It's it's long story. Like I'm Israeli. Like I was born in Azerbaijan, but
cool.
I immigrated to Israel when I was 13. Canada is my third and probably the last country, but I'm not sure about it.
Get over to Canada, man. Let's go.
I'm here, but with the dynamics that we have right now, maybe I don't know. Elon Musk is promising Mars, and we will not have politicians there for a while.
Is that your next stop, Mars, when Elon Musk colonizes it?
Who knows?
Awesome. All right, Ben. Appreciate you, man. Going to check you back on mute.
Yep.
Good stuff. All right. Let's see. Who's got a question here? In the meantime, speaking of gurus, we're going to open up. We need some questions here, folks. But I'm going to open up Martin Howie. We just got a master class on NLP. I wonder what Martin will have for us. Yo, Mr. Martin Howie, what's going on?
Oh, it's the same thing. Things are going very well. Thanks very much for chatting for a minute. Yeah, that was very good. The NLP was awesome. Good job.
Yeah, Tom's a gun. Yeah, that was pretty cool. So tell us, so if I put you on the spot, Martin, how long you been consulting? About 40 years, something like that. So I know it's very nervous when you wake up in the morning and have to do consulting. How long have you been doing it for?
Well, I started my first business in 1966, 54 years ago, and I've had my company for 45 now, working with coaches and consultants. So it's been a while. Yeah.
So tell us the number one hack over the last 40 plus years of helping business owners, for everybody listening. What's your number one hack, your number one bit of advice you'd throw at them?
Find the right clients. I think so many coaches and consultants are messing around with businesses that are doing 250,000, 500,000, just small businesses. And I think one of the problems is the way we present this. In some of our examples, we say, well, suppose you have a business that's doing $100,000 and we can do, or 250,000, and our illustrations show what we can do for those kind of small businesses. And I understand the point is to illustrate what we can do for a very small business. Now, what if your business was larger? Well, if you're fooling around with businesses, many of them, I mean, if you figure, let's say you have a business that's doing $250,000, and even if they have a 50% net profit margin, which is very unusual, that's only $125,000. And then by the time they pay personal taxes and all that, there's no money to pay you on that. So you have to raise your sights and find businesses, number one, that are large enough, and number two, and it doesn't matter the gross revenue doesn't really matter. What really matters is what is their profit. That's the only thing. It's the money that's left over after pay all of your expenses and overheads and wages and salaries and taxes and all that. How much money do they have left over? That's discretionary money. They back out what they need to live on. And if there's no money to pay you, then why are you messing with them? And really, if I see so many courses online today, on Facebook and different places, how I can help you generate more leads. It's all about generating more leads. No, if you find the right kinds of clients, you can work with 6 or 8 clients and make yourself a good $250,000, $300,000 a year and work 4 or 5 days, 4 days a week, 3 or 4 hours a day. It's not rocket science. It's finding the right client that you can help, who has the money to pay you, and get it and charging what you're actually worth. When you start going and charging $495 or $997 or those kinds of fees, there's no money in it. And you get it for 3 months or 6 months, there's no money in it. You've got to get these folks for 24 months, 36 months. Here's the thing. If you go in and you work with a client, and let's just say that you agree on a 6-month arrangement, And then you say, oh, no, wait a minute. Why don't we go for a year? The client says, no, we've settled on 6 months. Let's go there. You can't go up. But what if you started with 3 years? And they say, well, that's a long time. Well, I'll tell you what, let's do. Why don't we work on a 24-month basis? And then what we'll do is we'll reevaluate, or take 3 years, we'll reevaluate at 18 months and 24 months and see where we are. There's nothing wrong with having a vanishing retainer as long as your contingency rate rises. Remember, when you first start with the business, there's very little money that's being earned up front. It's as your systems and processes get implemented, they start generating more and more and more money. So, and that stacks on top of each other, it's exponential. So there's nothing wrong with going in with a high retainer to begin with, to pay for all of your research and things you're doing up front, and have it vanish over time as your contingency starts to rise. And so after a while, you're working on great contingency, and you can have that retainer totally vanish. So
if somebody were to, sorry to interrupt you. So if somebody's listening and they're looking for that better client of $1 million plus, right, with decent margins, where's the best place for them to fish, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, when I look at the businesses, there are 2 different categories or 3 different categories I look at. First of all, I don't look at manufacturing at all. Right? Somebody comes in and says, well, I need 50,000 widgets. Whoever can give me the best price on 50,000 widgets. Well, how do you work with that kind of a business? I'm looking for businesses like, let's take a look at retail, for example. If you're going to sell something to somebody, you have to have somebody to sell something to, which means you have to have traffic. So if you have a retail business, you're looking for a couple of things. Number one, is it a product that somebody needs and can use? It's in demand. Number two, how do they generate traffic? The more people that come in and out of their store, the more opportunity you have to sell something, to sell something, because you got to have that traffic. The second part of that is you need to have a consumable. If you have a highly consumable product, something that needs to be repeated over and over, then of course you can have opportunities to sell more. Now, let me give you an example of a grocery store. This is a good and bad example. It's a good example because they have highly consumable product you have to buy over and over and over. The bad part of that is, and they have a lot of traffic. The bad part of it is they don't have any margins. Like they're working on 1 or 2% margin, and they have to sell a lot of stuff at a very low margin, and that's how they stay in business. So you're looking for traffic and consumables, if you can find that in a retail store. The second part of this is, the second type of business I look at are service or professional-based businesses. These kinds of businesses, they're not so much worried about traffic, they're worried about positioning. How can I position this business to be completely different than any other business in their chosen marketplace? For an example, what do accountants do? Typically, accountants work in a defensive posture. They help you avoid paying too much, pay your taxes, but not pay too much. Stay out of trouble with the IRS and keep control of your money. They work in terms of more of a defensive posture. Go to your accountant and ask him, can you help me grow my business? And most of them will say, no, that's not what I do. I can help you with taxes and reporting and that kind of thing, and bookkeeping, but I really can't help you grow your business. But what if that accountant could? What if in his back pocket he had somebody named Carl Bryan? That he could say, you know what, there's a lot of people who've been asking me about that over the years. We've had to turn away because that isn't what we're doing. That isn't what we're trained in. But I have, as part of our organization, someone named Carl Bryan, who's an expert in this. And he works specifically with our clients to help them find ways that they can generate more profits for their business. If you'd like, I'd be happy to hook you up with him, and he'll sit down with you for 45 minutes and show you what you can do to generate some significant profits for your business. And by the way, don't worry about the cost. I'm going to cover that for you because he's part of our team. Now, if you like what he sees, or what he shows you rather, at the end of your presentation, and you'd like to work with him and take this to another level, I've arranged for him to give you the family price, which is a price you couldn't get anywhere else. If you say, no, that's not for me, not a problem. Call on his hat, jump on the back of his horse, and ride up into the sunset, and everything's cool. If you'd like, I'd be happy to set you up with us. I can't do it for everybody, but because you're one of our long-term clients, and you've trusted us enough to handle your book for years and help us support our business, it's my turn now to give back to you to support your business. What do you think? Would you like for me to set you up? So I'm looking for, now I can position that accountant as the only accountant in town that offers that kind of service, or the only kind of financial advisor, or estate planning attorney, or whatever it is, other service-based businesses that I can position as somebody different and unique and special that nobody else can compete with. Because you see, if you're not happy with your taxes, you walk in and you pick up your taxes April 15th in the US, you're not happy with it, your accountant's going to say, look, I've got good news and bad news for you. The good news is you made more money this year than you did last year. The bad news is you didn't pay enough in withholding tax. You've got to pay some more. Now you're upset with him. So what are you going to do? You go down the street to find another accountant. You know who you're going to find? The same guy. Well, he has a different name and a different office, but he's the same person. He uses the same software to figure taxes out as the last guy did. See, so these guys are across the board are generic. You've got to find a way to make that one business stand out. Now, if you find one of those, that ties up that market. So you get an accountant, you get a financial planner. I have 56 different businesses that we work with like that we can point to and say, here's each one of these become now referral sources for us or introductory sources. I don't like to use referrals. There's three types of getting business from somebody else. One is word of mouth. The next one is referral. And the next one is introductions. I want you to introduce me to somebody, not just say, hey, Martin, here's the name of somebody. Go by and talk to them and tell them that Carl sent you. I want you to introduce me to that person. And so we have a whole system. I set up it in our contract. There's two parts of the contract at the end that says, if we reach these certain benchmarks, in other words, we have numbers that we set up. If we can reach these benchmarks, will you agree? It says, I will agree to write you a testimonial letter on our letterhead within 5 days. Now, John, do you think that if we could hit these numbers, would you be willing to do that? Well, sure I would. Okay. The next one says, if I hit these benchmark numbers, I will introduce you to 2 other business owners who could realistically benefit from the kinds of services you provided for me. John, would you agree? Would you do this? Would you introduce me to these people if we could do this? Well, sure. Now, when you've reached those numbers, you take your contract back, you sit down with them and say, John, remember when we first talked? And I said right here that you'd be willing to write me a testimonial letter on your letterhead. Remember that? Oh, yeah. When do you think I can pick that up from you? If you say, when could you get that to me? Or can you get that to me? Yeah. And he'll never get it to you. You say, when can I pick that up by Friday? Now he's committed, right? You're going to go by and call him up on Thursday. Hey, John, remember I said, will you have that ready for me? Right? That holds his feet to the fire. And John, remember when we talked, you said you would be willing to introduce me to 2 other people who could benefit from our services? Yeah. The last thing I want to do is ask him who those people are. I want to sit down and say, John, when do you think would be a good time for us to sit down together and brainstorm who those people might be? I'm not looking for a name. You see, here's what happens when people ask for referrals. What do they say? Do you know anybody that could benefit from what we offer? No, I can't think of anybody, but if I do, I'll let you know. And they never let you know. But now I'm not looking for a name. I'm looking for an appointment. When would be a good time for us to sit down and brainstorm together who those people might be? Now we sit down. I open up their mental file cabinet and I pull a file out and professional organizations. John, who belong to an organization, a club, or a group? Yes, I do. Do you know anybody in there that specifically comes to mind? Yeah, I don't want them to think of the whole world. I want them to think of that particular group. Do you go to the gym with somebody? Do you have a relative? So I'm going to pull out these different people files for different groups.
Yeah, I love that.
Now,
I love that, Martin. Sorry, but yeah, I like the way you position that. So you sit with somebody and you're looking for referrals. Instead of saying, hey, who can you send me? You say, let's set up a time where we can sit down and come up with a list. I would just add, Martin, I wonder if you'd like this, but one of the things I've always done and had a lot of success with is with that joint venture partner, let's call it an accountant. But guys, again, don't get too hung up on accountants. They can be very challenging. If you get them, it's a home run, but it can be getting them to make a decision can be challenging. But anyway, so let's just say it's accountant. Hypothetically, I tell them to take me for a test drive and just give me 3 people. Don't give me 30 people. Don't give me everybody you ever met. I don't need all of them. I want 3 so that I can prove myself, and then we go from there.
There you go. That works fine. Yeah, you bet.
Yep. Yeah, but I would just add that. So I would do the same thing. I would say exactly what you said, and that's that let's get together and set up a time where we can explore who you're going to refer. And as part of that, I'd say, look, let's have a look at 10, but why don't you just send me the first 3? And then in 90 days, we're both going to know how it went. And again, I would refer to it as a test drive, which they normally feel very comfortable with.
That's very good.
Cool. I love it. Well, Martin,
Wow.
There we go. I tell you what, we opened up Tom. We opened up Martin. We got a bit of a masterclass here today, Pat. How'd we do?
Started with Billy, kicked it off.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, I can't forget Billy and Ben, by the way, and Ben.
Yeah, and man, we just kept going up and up and up. This is awesome. Thank you, Martin, as well for that.
Cool.
And that script, I mean, it's just gold. So I'm, again, glad we've recorded this, and this is great advice, really good advice. So thank you so much.
Well, awesome. All right, guys. Well, we're a little bit over. So, Martin, we appreciate you, buddy. Everybody else. Anything else, Martin, here before we shut you down?
No, you guys are doing a great job. This has been really educational, and I'm hopefully and informative, and I hope that beneficial for other people who are listening who aren't up to speed on NLP. And of course, it takes a long time to get NLP, but it can be one of the most valuable things you learn.
Yeah, agreed. And it's just one step in front of the other. You got to get started. That's the secret. So there we go. Beauty. All right, Martin. Appreciate you, buddy. Going to check you back on mute. All right. Well, there you go. Kenya, Pat. For everybody listening, we appreciate you guys. Kenya, Pat, any parting words for our folks here?
I'm going to go walk with giraffes this weekend. No joke.
And he's serious, by the way. You're looking at pictures of him with his family and lions within yards of him. I'm like, you're crazy, man. You're crazy. Anyways.
A lot of fun. A lot of fun.
I love it. All right, buddy. Well, enjoy. And for everybody else listening, we'll all be jealous of Pat on his little weekend safari. But we appreciate you guys. We'll see you next week. And happy Easter to everybody who's listening. We appreciate all you guys, and enjoy your family and enjoy the Easter break. Toodaloo, folks.